Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I still have Inderpreet with me today. We are so excited to continue the conversation from last week, and let's just get started. There's another concept I actually want to ask you about too, which is the concept of Chardi Kala, right? So that eternal optimism and rising spirit. And how has that played out in your own life? But also, can you share a specific moment where you felt that? And then also, if you can even touch upon it a little bit with regards to Bani and what our Gurbani says about it.
Yeah, so the Chardi Kala aspect, for your listeners who don't know, we repeat it every day. At the end of any kind of congregational program, we do what's called an ardas. It's like a congregational prayer. And the last line of that prayer is Nanak Naam Chardi Kala Tere Paane Se Badla. So Chardi Kala, the word itself, has to do, loosely translated, constantly in ascending spirits, constantly in this positive attitude. And what Sikhs pray for is that may this idea of Naam, or this Naam culture, this constant remembrance of the divine, what that has translated in our lives is that may Sikhs always be in ascending spirits no matter what external adverse things are affecting them. So it's a very well-known kind of motto or attitude for the Sikhs. But when you study it, like, where does that idea kind of come from Gurbani? Where does that come from the scriptures, right?
Right.
And the scriptures are a huge treasure, right? Any and every answer that anybody wants is absolutely in there. It just takes effort to study.
Yeah, and it takes, it's hard to understand for people who don't put the time in to understand. Exactly. So it is a little bit tricky. I could see that. Yeah.
So when you look at it, what I have come, again, this is just my perspective, and there's always many perspectives of Gurbani, that's the greatness of Gurbani itself, is that it's the living in hukam, or living in consonance with whatever the divine will. So Sikhs believe that everything that is happening in this universe is happening as a result of some divine will. And our problem of when we get frustrated, the frustrations and the anxieties that happen in our life, is when our own will, I believe that, is not in consonance with what the divine will is. When there's that breakage, or that out of phase of the divine, if you think of the divine will as like a sine wave or something, it's out of phase. That breakage is when the frustrations and the problems arise. So Gurbani constantly is telling us to, hey, my mind, hey, my being, live in the divine will. And then this idea is like Anand, you've heard of Anand, which means bliss. Bliss will come as a result. And being aligned with that makes everything easier afterwards. The problem is, when
you're on two different trajectories and they're not aligning.
Exactly. No, the problem is, like, in our culture, modern day culture, I accomplished this. I did a great job. I should deserve this. So this I-ness that is, Gurbani says that, right? Even the word, very interestingly, for like ego in Gurbani is home. Right, home means I, man means I, so it's like I-ness squared. Is what is the blockage for us to align our will with
right will. And I guess we also call that ego.
Correct.
Right, that's correct. Ego.
Correct.
Which I think is a universal concept that so many faiths discuss.
This whole idea of ego doesn't mean that we don't take pride in who we are, what we do, and what we accomplish. Right. Who we attribute that success to is the biggest difference. In a lot of Sikh families, whenever something is achieved, a great thing is achieved, either kids are born, or someone graduates, or something great in business,
or someone gets a job,
we buy a house, or we get a business. What do? All of our families will do an ardas and say, thank you, Vaheguru. Thank you, our divine, for the gift that. So even though we accomplished it, we attribute that success. That's the Sikh culture. That's a family/Sikh culture that we live with, and I think that's the difference. When we forget to attribute our success it came as a blessing of the divine, is when we get in trouble with what is ego, or what is this selfish pride versus genuine pride.
Right. And genuinely thanking someone versus just doing it for society.
Correct.
Like genuinely knowing that this was a blessing.
Yeah.
You know, my grandfather always used to tell me whenever something good happened, or, you know, he'd be like, it's all because of him. It's all because of him. And I just remember this concept. And it's interesting because as a mom, you know, with the children, even when good things happen to them, I'm like, immediately go thank Babaji. Yeah. You know, they might not do a full ardas, but I'll just be like, you have to go thank that Babaji right now. I'm doing it subconsciously because that's how I was raised. But it's true. We are told to be reminded of that every time something good happens. It's because of God.
Assis, I'm telling you, this is a culture in my family as well, right? And I have witnessed with other families, and I'm really grateful that, you know, we've kept that culture that we grew up with alive as Sikhs. Who, when some success occurs, that we go thank Babaji.
And you know what's interesting too? Whenever something bad happens, I'm also like, I mean, I think a lot of people do this. I also just in my head go to Babaji and I'm like, Babaji, like I'm in a problem, or I'm struggling, or there's a situation. I really got to figure this out. Can you please help me figure this out or guide me? And I'm not joking you. Sometimes I go to bed with a problem and I'll wake up with a solution. And I really think, like, in my dreams, he's helping me figure it out. I really believe that.
So, you know, Assis, I think it's a matter of consistency and faith, right? Consistency, like when good things happen, we're in remembrance. When bad things happen, we're in remembrance. So one is a thankful remembrance. One is a help remembrance. Like, please guide and help. And so there's a consistency there, right? The problem occurs, which Guru Sahib writes in Gurbani about, is that we only remember when we're in trouble.
Right. And I will say for the majority of the time, I'm probably not equal about it either. I probably do call on him more for help than I do thinking, you know.
So success, Guru Sahib has said multiple times, success in life comes when you're consistent and in constant remembrance. Second thing I was going to say is about the faith. Yeah. I mean, if you intellectually analyze Sikhi, it's, you know, you slept and then in the morning you had the solution. You know, someone might technically say that's just what happened, but we have this faith.
No,
we have this faith, and whether people can challenge that faith within us, but Sikhs have survived through much more because of their faith, because of the ardas that they have done.
Right.
You know, so
that's right.
So I think what I'm sharing with you over here is that it's our upbringings, our family has a lot of impact in our practices of Sikhi as well. And you know, they need to be aligned.
That's right. And, you know, there's a beautiful line in Gurbani that talks about remaining steady, like a mountain in the face of storms, right? How do you personally practice that kind of steadiness in your own life?
It's not easy. It's not easy, but yeah, I mean, I think the best example I can give is when I'm called to do seva for different things. There might be 100 things going on at home, and I may not have time, but somehow I'm attributing this to the Guru's blessing. I know how to prioritize these things. So just a few weeks ago, there was, you know, certain things that maybe I shouldn't have left, but I was called down to present at a camp for young Sikh kids, and I made the trip and I did that. And it's a support at home is also what's required over here. So I have to acknowledge the family support that one gets in, you know, going after the priorities that you have in your life. And my priority happens to be, you know, doing seva whenever I'm called to do so. Right. Or it could be even non-community related. It could be work related. It could be other things. And when you create that culture within your family and because of your faith, I think that's what really has allowed me to be steadfast. Attributing it to the divine and Guru's blessing. A steadfast family will make yourself automatically steadfast. I think that's logical.
Yes. And then when, you know, there's also this concept in Sikhi of Sarab ka Aukhad Naam.
Yeah.
That's like the medicine for all ailments, right? From what I understand. So how does that translate into practical resilience for someone who is going through some hardships?
Yes. So I think taking that line as an example, there are many similar examples, but
Right.
the word you said is for rogue is ailment, right? It's an illness. And the question should be in Gurbani or even for us, what does ailment really mean, right? Is it physical ailment or is it, frustrations and external impacts on our life, or is it
Right. Right.
internal issues? So recognizing what those ailments are is like, I think, the first step, right? And regardless of what that is, that's the second part of the line, called Aukhad Naam, the medicine for whatever that rogue may be that you identify as negative in your life, is that, again, that Naam culture. Naam, literally, all it means is name. But in the
Right.
Sikh
It's
parlance, yeah,
remembering.
in the
It's
Sikh
like,
parlance,
right.
it's the attributes of the divine. So there are many, many attributes of the divine: fearlessness, almighty, omnipresent, benevolent, creation, creator, right? So those attributes of the divine, if we bring in our lives, that automatically is a medicine for the negative ailments of our life,
Got it.
right? So that's what that
Yeah.
line means to me. And yeah, I wouldn't, if I may, sometimes this line is presented as it's a particular word and you have to repeat it, and then all your ailments go away. And that's one option of an interpretation.
Right.
But I take it as the much broader one, is that the attributes of the divine that are all positive are the things that will allow the negativity to be destroyed,
Mm.
right? So
Right.
it is the broader idea of Naam, or name. It's not just a particular word.
Right, exactly. And it depends. Some people believe it is the power of the word, and that's
Yeah,
fine. Whatever gives you strength,
correct.
honestly.
Exactly.
And then my next question is, what aspect of Sikh philosophy or history do you think would be most valuable for our listeners to understand, regardless of their background?
So I mean, there's a lot of aspects of Sikh tea, right?
I know.
But I think the most important aspect to understand is like the start of our Gurbani. What has our gurus revealed? And the very first page of our Guru Granth Sahib starts with Ikonkar. That Sikhi is all about this idea of oneness, right? Ikonkar and
Right.
oneness, and yes, there are many other faiths in the world that believe in quote unquote monotheistic faith, etc. But the idea of oneness in Sikhi is kind of way beyond that. That it is literally the letter one is what Guru Sahib starts it with, right?
Yeah.
So it's a really, if anything, a very strong monotheism. But the idea of oneness is this equivalent. It's on the basis and foundation of love. There's a line that we recite many times. It's called "Jin prem kiyo tinhi prab payo." Prem is love. So those who
Is
love,
love. Yeah.
they attain the divine. That's what that line means. Now, it doesn't give a definition of how to love. It's
Right.
having that love of that oneness, like that you really, anything outside of you you consider to be the same as within you, right? In an attitude of love. That's kind of from a theological perspective. If someone wants to understand Sikhi, they have to start at that foundation, that it's about oneness and love.
Right.
But the second most, I think you also asked, like, not just philosophy but historical, or kind of that idea of
Yeah.
Sikhi, is that Sikhi has a really strong sense of sovereignty built in within it,
Yes.
right? First of all, it's a unique faith, right? It's in the big culture of South Asia. There were, at that time of Guru Nanak, there were the major two faiths were the Semitic faiths, like Islam was there, the Hindu and yogic faiths, they existed over there, and Guru Nanak emerged as like this third path as well. So Sikhs do really believe that we are a third path, and so for your listeners who are not familiar with Sikhi, if you come to study Sikhi from the Western Judeo-Christian angle, there you'll find lots of similarities. But if you study Sikhi from the Hindu angle, you'll find a lot of similarities, right? But people who know both, when they study it, they'll find that there's no system here. So the reason why is because it's a unique system. It's very different than the
Right.
existing world systems. I think that's a very important
Yes.
aspect.
And I think that's really interesting that you're mentioning that, because oftentimes people are like, oh, so basically you're monotheistic like Islam, but then you're also like Hindu in this way. And you know, we always, at least what I try to say is actually it's pretty different. It's really, yes, some practices are similar. The thinking, the reasoning is not that similar. It really is its own faith.
Yes. And I think even for Sikhs, for them to accept and understand that is very important. But your question was about what others would want to know. And I think even that, the idea of oneness and the idea of sovereignty of Sikhs is you base your conversations with others on that foundation. I think it'll go a much longer way.
I think now I want to kind of move the conversation into a more personal note. So I'd like you to share some of your experience, with, for instance, your involvement with Sikh youth camps, which I know you, and retreats, because you do these regularly, I would say. So what do you see young Sikhs struggling with today in terms of identity and that sense of belonging?
I mean, first of all, I learn a lot more than I share when I go to these retreats and camps. I learn from the youth, and sometimes we go to adult camps. So there's lots of varying different experiences and schools of thought that we go through. But at the end of the day, I think all Sikhs are struggling with exactly that, their sense of identity, right? I think my experiences have, with the blessing of the divine, of Vaheguru, I've ended up being comfortable in my skin. And when I see some of the kids struggling with that and having questions about it, I somehow wish that they have similar experiences that make them become more comfortable in their skin as well. So I think that's one thing which comes with blessing, comes with a connection with Gurbani in whatever way one can connect to Gurbani.
Right. Yeah.
So
and I also think it's part of growing up, whether you're a Sikh or not. You do feel at times, and this podcast has explored that actually, where everyone is sort of finding their own identity and their own journey, right?
Correct.
Especially, I would say, like the adolescent age to young adulthood. I mean, you're exposed to different things and you're picking and choosing what applies to you and what doesn't. And sometimes what applies to you doesn't really apply to maybe the principles or to your family in a certain way. And that's okay. Yep. And figuring out who you are for yourself on your own terms.
Absolutely.
And I mean, when I think what you're also alluding to is just like some young people, would feel caught between all these identities, and different people also, I deal with this differently. Like I have friends who compartmentalize more. I have friends who just want to be who they are all the time, and it's about not being put in a box, just comfortable with who you are and being who you are at all times and all the different facets of oneself. Mm-hmm. But some people want to compartmentalize. So when they come home, they want to be a certain way. When they're at work, they want to be a certain way. And that's okay. And I think with Sikhi, what I found in my own personal life is that because I've always felt a strong bond with my Sikhi, I also have been very comfortable knowing that as long as I'm a Sikh in all my identities and I know who I am, nothing can really throw me off too much, and people will accept me for who I am. And if I'm speaking French one day or 3 days, my Sikh religion, my faith doesn't change just because I'm speaking a different language. And in my case, I don't even speak Punjabi. Like I know I can read and write, but I can't speak.
Right.
But, I feel that my connection to my guru is still, it's intact, and I think it's decently strong.
I think you nailed it right there. Like what in the different identities that we navigate, what is the constant? What is the constant that you can attach to, right? And in your case, it's Sikhi. In my case, also, I think it's Sikhi, right? Yeah, because whether it's in my tech career, in talking to CTOs and CEOs, or whether it's in, some other location that I go to, that I have to change based on what the environment is and what work is being done, but that Sikhi remains constant within me, right? And I think that strength or that constant aspect, I think the kids in camps and retreats the fact that they're there, some are there because their parents made them go there. Some are
I
there.
think most are there because their parents made them.
But in the more young adult Gurmat
Yes,
leadership
then it
retreats,
becomes a
people
choice.
are making
Yes.
choices, and they're coming there and they're learning, and
Yeah.
they're using what they learn over there as tools that they can use how to think about Sikhi and how to do this navigation with something that's maybe pulling them in a constant. So when you ask, like, what are they struggling with, what are they missing, I think whatever we all are struggling with as well is that maintaining that connection to Sikhi, I think, is what, because I'm
Right.
looking at it from the Sikh community angle, right? So
Right.
yeah, so it's but if I may, now that you and I both, we have families, like what can families do to kind of maintain that is like what our families did, right? They had something there, they didn't force it upon us, but we went along with it, right?
Right.
And
We knew it was always there,
yeah,
but we weren't like, I don't know about you, but in my home, I wasn't forced to think a certain way or to behave a certain way. I mean, I had to behave and we had
yeah,
rules, but we were allowed to really explore who we were outside of the parental identity
yeah,
and what they were, but we still knew our religion, right? But again, I like not speaking Punjabi and going to Gurdwara and Punjabi school. It was a little bit difficult for me to maybe understand a lot of the children who were at Punjabi school because my life was kind of different and Punjabi was not a language spoken in my home much. So I did have a little bit of an issue like fitting in. But I will say I found ways to connect with the other kids. It was just through different things like dancing Bhangra or, or joining him and doing a speech. I mean, there were things that I could do that helped me make friends, even though it wasn't really like easy in the beginning. I mean, it wasn't.
yeah,
And it also gets a little bit difficult your teenage years when people are cliquish and you kind of stand out. Or I went to a school where there were not a lot of other Sikhs, so I didn't know these people socially necessarily in my age group.
right.
And that did make a difference to my ability to connect with people. But the home life and the stability that I had was very solid with Sikhi.
Yes, I agree. And that's what, now again, it's a responsibility of parents bringing up their kids.
Yeah.
Again, like I bring it back to, by doing what they did, I just naturally the seeds were being planted. So if Gurbani is kind of, again, whether in the original form or whether in the way you live, that you're bringing Gurbani to life and bringing a connection to Gurbani or Guru with your kids, that's our responsibility. Once and the seeds being planted is not our responsibility. It's the Guru's responsibility. Whether that happens or not will not be in our hands.
Right.
But we need to do our part and just sustain that Sikhi that we've grown up with and we've then chosen to make a part of ourselves.
I think as a parent, you give your best to the kids and to your children or to the community, right? You try to set the right example. But at some point, you're not responsible for your children. They're responsible for themselves when they become an adult.
Yes.
And if you've done what you could do, like you're not responsible for a 40-year-old man who can't figure out his life, or a 50-year-old, or even a 30-year-old, in my opinion. I mean, by that age, I really think you got to figure yourself out, and really hold yourself accountable for your own actions.
Right.
And again, like that's just my personal belief, and obviously everyone can think differently. But I think the benefit is that even in my family, Sikhi is practiced so differently. Like I have siblings who don't necessarily believe in the hair the way I do. And that's okay. We're still family. Once we left the house in college and people made decisions to do, practice Sikhi in a different way. So I chose to keep it. Some people didn't.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's, I mean, the connection to Gurbani, again, I'm all about constants, right? So because people's practice level of Sikhi, that's not for me or anyone to judge. That's the Guru to judge. And it's really, is there that Naam culture in your life or in your kind of vicinity? Is there some connection even there, right? That's really what is the foundation of everything else that comes within Sikhi, in the big umbrella of Sikhi as well.
Right. So if you don't mind, I do want to pivot back to something you had said earlier about your job and your career. So you work in technology and you're also deeply involved in Sikh community work. How do you balance those worlds? And do you ever find that they conflict or they complement each other? You did allude to it a little bit earlier, but I
Yeah,
just wanted to
no,
ask if you could expand on that.
it's a great question, and this is something that, again, I feel very fortunate. The places that where I've gone in my professional life, the places I chose, that it's not just them interviewing me. I also want to go into places where I know that I'll thrive and not just survive. And
Right.
I've been fortunate that I've had great experiences wherever. I have been part of diversity, equity, and inclusion groups within organizations because everyone is fortunate, and so we have to be proactive in
That's
making
right.
sure that everyone gets an equal opportunity. So there's never been a conflict. The impact of knowing what I do in my life outside of work is actually an advantage for me in leadership roles in the technology organizations. And that I said, I've been fortunate to have managers and executives who kind of I connect with on those type of things. So, as well as the form, as well as my identity,
Right.
never had a problem. But like I always say, just because I'm fortunate, we or I should be doing things to ensure that others don't have any blockages or any issues in being
Right.
successful in their careers either. I'm constantly looking for avenues to propagate and enable others to also step up if needed.
And I mean, you've also served on boards of major Sikh organizations. And what gives you hope about the future of the Sikh community, and especially young people who are navigating multiple cultures, but I also want to add like careers?
Yes, absolutely. So times have changed. These Sikh organizations that I've been part of, they did not exist, like, for example, before 9/11, 2001,
Right, which was a big one for us.
Yeah, which was a big one for us here in America, right? And there were activists, there were people doing quote unquote seva or service, but never in an organized fashion, never in a very professional way, with real nonprofits with a mission and a vision. It was gurdwaras, and gurdwaras were our center of all activity. So there's been progress, and there have been very, very well-run professional organizations that are sustaining. They're going through leadership cycles, because in the past, the other issue used to be is that an organization was spun up. It revolved around a particular one person. When that person moved on, the organization went.
But it just died, yeah.
But so far, it's been about 25 years or so, 26 years that we have organizations that are still going, right? So that's one hope that our organization, our Sikh organizations within North America, at least that I know of, are doing well, and the amount of young adults that are making choices who go that route are also growing, and that's the only reason why these organizations can sustain themselves. They need new talent. They need younger generations to step up. So that's positive as well. I think the challenges are coming. There are more challenges. AI culture is going to really dramatically change our lives, our careers. Probably our faith as well. So I think those challenges are coming. We're going to have to be ready with open eyes to figure out how to take on those challenges. But we have in the Sikh community, in the diaspora, in every space in the of professional careers you can think of, from medical, lawyers, political careers, business, high tech, blue collar, anything that goes, right? So the diversity exists. Now, bringing everyone together on the journey of building the Sikh community here in North America.
Yes,
that's the other challenge that I see. So there'll be a challenge of sustaining these Sikh organizations. There'll be a challenge of keeping this diverse sangats all over sangats or community,
and helping people grow, and also looking out for each other, which I think we are now starting to do as a community.
Absolutely.
I do think we're doing that. I do feel that,
Yeah.
which I'm very proud to see and hopefully be a part of as well.
Yeah.
You know, part of this podcast is also showcasing multiple identities and third culture kids, but a huge part of it is really also about exploring Sikhi and Sikhism and also connecting with really, I think, prominent Sikhs in their field and sharing stories from everyone's life.
Yeah.
So I have another question for you. So if you could sit down with your younger self, maybe it's that college student who's just beginning to explore his Sikh identity, you know, what would you tell him?
I I think if I look back on, what I had to do in order to kind of up the level of my understanding of Sikhi, I mean, I would definitely continue with that. That reading um, is really what made the difference, right? Just
Reading what? Bani or anything?
reading anything, reading anything.
Okay.
Because the actual delving into Gurbani, because of the language, that came a little bit later. But what I think one of the challenges for Sikh youth today, especially in this day and age, the TikTok generation, is our amount of reading has become less in general. Reading about Sikhi is probably even less than that, right? So don't lose the kind of the fascination that you get with reading about Sikh history, about Sikh theology, and other things. And the second thing, would be about the language. My Punjabi vocabulary improved in those 3 to 4 years in Canada in my adult life. Was way more than my whole career,
I believe it.
whole thing, because I was in the community, and and that's when my kind of ability, my comfort level with Guru Granth Sahib and Gurbani became, pretty obvious. So studying the languages, if you could do that earlier, sooner rather than later, sticking with the books is for your Sikhi journey. I would say a lot of other things for everything else about my life to my younger self, but for my Sikhi journey, those two is stick with the books and study the languages. By the way, not just colloquial Punjabi. In order to understand Gurbani, there's a lot more language treasure within Gurbani than just Punjabi. You probably
than the spoken Punjabi today.
Yes.
How has your understanding of what being a Sikh is? How has it evolved over the past 30 years?
Maybe not a direct answer to that, but I can tell you that many times, even within my extended family, but also within like the community circles, I was considered like a hot-headed Sikh when I was young. So now I take it all in, have much more broader conversations about it, rather than having that hot-headed activist type of desire to go and tackle the ills of our community.
Right.
Yeah.
You let it roll off your back a little bit, and it's like
comes with age.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What's fascinating to me is way back then, the elders of the community that I have so much respect for used to tell me the same thing.
Oh, really?
Yes. So even the quote unquote mega activists, young Sikhs today, they're on their own journey, and as the elders of the day who have been my mentors and who have helped me through my Sikh journey, have shared that with the way I was back then. So, but to answer your question, there's an evolution that's not just my own personal one. I think our whole community, those that choose to be Sikhs and want to, make a difference, they go through this type of cycle and journey as well. It's very. I felt that. I'm realizing that now, and I felt it was very profound realization.
Yeah, it is. And also it's interesting because now I want to ask you about your children. So what do you hope that your children will carry forward from both your journey and Sikh teachings about strength? Yeah.
One of the things that, again, it's our responsibility to give them all of the opportunities that I also got. So I do truly believe, and this brings us to your podcast, and the real crux of it is that the experience of different cultures, the travel, the exposure of living our lives while keeping that constant of strong Sikhi That's what I hope that they will get, so that
Right.
they end up being comfortable in their skin based on all the experiences that they go through, just like I did. So, and as you and I have spoken about, right? Like, we have to do our best as responsible parents, but after, when they become adults, they have to identify with their own
Yeah.
identities.
Yeah. And you know what? There is a chance that they're going to find an identity that maybe we don't recognize or identify with as strongly. And I think part of maybe parenting is also, and obviously I'm not there yet, but if it happens, maybe even stepping away and just knowing that that's their journey and we have our own, right? And I think as a parent, that's going to be really tough for me if that ever happens.
Yeah,
But
it's
I
difficult.
I know it's a possibility.
It's a
Yeah.
possibility, and it's difficult. But you and I, uh, admitting that it's a possibility, I think is us tying it back to Sikh fundamentals of whatever comes in Vaiguru's Hukam, whatever comes
Right.
will come and will be the divine's will that we have to align
Right.
ourselves with.
And we'll just have to accept it, and process it in our own way. So I have a last question for you for today. What does Sakura, Sikhi, and strength mean to you? Obviously, you have ties to Japan. So I do want to ask you, especially when you think about the cherry blossoms, and eternal strength that Sikhi teaches, what does all that mean to you?
Yeah. So first of all, I think the title of your podcast was brilliant, right? Because it's tying, I mean, your identities and your life journey, but yes, similar to mine. As I remember the Sakura back in Japan, they would vanish right after April or May, but then they would return back again. They were like
Come back
constantly.
every year.
The Sakura itself, for me, represents strength, right? Of resilience, of coming back, constantly coming back, regardless of what the weather and what the climate, what the external forces that were part of it during that cycle until spring comes back again. And Sikhi is like that too. So strength, Sakura, and in the middle is Sikhi. Sikhi is sometimes referred to as a Buddha, as a plant, as a tree that grows up into a tree that has deep roots, and that's why it remains big and strong, regardless of, as you know, in our Sikh history, from the time of the gurus, the genocides of the
Right.
18th century, then the 1984 genocides. We've gone through so much, but no one can tell us that Sikhi is finished. Sikhi is gone. Many people have tried to finish Sikhi, whether it's population of Sikhi, but also Sikhi of thought, of Sikhi
Of mind.
of
It's
mind.
our mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that remains steadfast and
Yeah.
strong, and it constantly evolves. There may be ebbs and
Right.
flows. So Sakura, Sikhi, and strength, I think it's brilliant. It's perfect.
It's so beautiful, because when I thought of Sakura, originally it was the ever-changing, it passes the impermanence of life almost. And you took it as a meaning of strength. I didn't think about it that way. So what a great way to end our discussion. Thank you again so much for being here today. It's so fulfilling emotionally, spiritually, just having you here to talk about Sikhism and to share it with our listeners. I'm also so grateful that we have access to people like you here in the US, and because your level of detail, the way that you speak, I find is so tangible, and it's easy for people to comprehend. And of course, we only touched a little bit about Sikhi and its thoughts and ideas and philosophy surrounding strength, but I do hope it gives some food for thought for people. So thank you again. And I hope we can do this again sometime.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I'm humbled that you asked me to join, and I also enjoyed the conversation a lot. You did an excellent job in helping me through and allowing me to share. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.